What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It's Wednesday night. You know what it is. Chopping it up, episode 18. Talking about artificial intelligence today, baby. It's been one that these three gentlemen have been very excited to bring to you. And I mean, I think that I speak for everyone here saying that we're gonna learn a lot today. These guys are, very knowledgeable, uh, to a very high degree. So it's gonna be a really nice one. But without further ado, let me welcome you to our host today. We got the one and only repping the baseball shirt. He's really in World Series mode. Whoa, whoa, oh God, this guy got a lot of pride. The
See that one
Mets,
coming, right?
the Mets,
Yeah, we almost had a winning record this year.
in an abbreviated season, yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. I mean, I thought y'all had a good chance, but
No.
it'd be like that sometimes, man. I mean, there's always next year. Maybe it's gonna be another abbreviated season. Maybe I'll bring it
All
home.
right, bro. All right, bro.
All right. On to the next one. On to the next one. You know that guy. But we got two of the homies right here. Two great, very knowledgeable guys. Let's start with the guy on the bottom left. Welcome, Mister. We like to call him Surfer. How we doing,
How are you?
Professor Surf today?
Yeah.
He had a whole fit on. If you guys follow Una Wood on Instagram, shout out to her. She was a host a couple weeks back. Wonderful human being. He had a whole getup. He was really on his collegiate professor vibe, but I mean, he just decided to tone it down, chill vibe tonight. Cracked out the sweater,
You know
so he
what?
said, "Why not?"
Since I was a professor, yeah.
Yeah, Professor Shreds.
I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, last but not least, bottom right, the homie Tolu. How we doing, sir?
The esteem.
Uh, we're chilling, man. We good. It's a lot going on in the world, man. Just trying to live it up.
Mm-hmm.
Just vibing.
Yep, as you should, as you definitely should, brother. I mean, there is a lot going on in the world, but these guys, all with physics backgrounds, I mean, extensive physics backgrounds. So this is really right up their alley. Uh, Talk to the people. What have you guys been doing lately?
Well, I think I should go first, and I think I want to like shed light to what's going on in my hometown of Lagos, Nigeria. So, for those who aren't aware, the government there have been raining terror on the innocent citizens. So, I just want to shed light to that, and I'm sending a heart to those that have been lost in the protests to end SARS. Uh, it is a sad reality that's being experienced down there, and I have my heart with those families and with the people of Nigeria right now.
Oh, well said.
Yeah, no, definitely well said. I mean, what's going on there is, I mean, you can't really, there are very few words to really describe what's going on there. I could really not even imagine it. And definitely our prayers are with the people there. Hopefully those days of terror come to an end sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's all I hope. Honestly, it's crazy.
Yep. So Surf, what have you been doing lately? And tell the
Uh,
people you've been up to.
Quite as exciting. Since I finished my master's in applied mathematics, my very short physics professorship stint, been working recently from home for insurance, doing analytics and a little bit of programming when I have time.
Okay. All right. You see, he always keeps it in his back pocket. He packs that thing too, huh? And then the good old Feek, we've seen a lot of this guy. I mean,
Maybe
yeah,
too much, right?
yeah, it just might be, but just keeps coming back.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I mean, of course, we know lots of things going on. Um, as we've said in the past, vote. Uh, 13 days. It's important. No matter who you're casting that vote for, just go out and do it. Vote. Have your voice be heard. Have a little stake in like where the country goes and what policies are made and whatnot. It's just really important. Um, And yeah, just continue to stay safe and whatnot. But let's get right into it. So artificial intelligence. I'm sure we've seen a lot of movies, we've seen a lot of media, and I think it's something that has really, over the last couple of years, it's really become a lot more popular, and people are really starting to like try to understand it and really conceptualize exactly what artificial intelligence is. Like, is it just a robot that's able to do something? Is it basically how we interact with the world on a daily basis, like with our phones and other various technology? I mean, technology has just been improving like day in and day out. There's always some new program, there's always some new phenomenon that's really just pushing the envelope. And I mean, hey, some people will say that's great. We're going to have a lot of great advancements that human beings would not have been able to do on their own. Or is this a little bit too much technology there? So let's kick it off um, with this topic. Can we as human beings create something that has consciousness? Is that actually a plausible possibility, or is it just beyond our reach? I know we put out a poll, but what do you guys think?
I mean, as the old guy here, I'll throw my throw my vote in the yes category, like one for yes. So for those in the chat, I would make the argument based off some science and something called Moore's law. I'm sure Tolu Surf probably know about that. Blouse maybe too, but Moore's law is a scientific tenet, and it essentially holds that the number of transistors on an integrated circuit doubles every, people say, either 18 months or 2 years. Um, and what that means in reality is that the speed and memory capacity of computational devices doubles every 18 months or 2 years. And based on the projection, assuming that continues, which is a discussion to be had, whether Moore's law holds up over the next century of development. If so, it is expected that the computational capacity of a computer will match that of a human brain within the next 100 years. So, on that scientific assessment, I throw a yes into
Also gonna
Um,
go with yes. As it's all if I just cut him off, but the one thing that we know that does have consciousness is us, and albeit very far in the future, it would be possible to either emulate or recreate a human brain. So it does stand to reason for me that we can achieve something with the same amount of connections, computing power, or actual physical makeup is what we're walking around with. So I don't think it's very close in the future, but possible nonetheless.
So not within our lifetimes, but definitely, would you agree with what Dan said in terms of that coupling effect where we'd reach that consciousness in 100 years?
Moore's law, I think I read something recently that said it was beginning to falter and slow down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It is an exponential growth, so maybe within our lifetime.
Mm.
yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. I think it depends on like how are we going to be able to test consciousness in machines. So yeah, like how are we gonna know when machines are conscious? Because like we can get machines to simulate human behavior, but like at what like do we have the capability of being able to test whether they're conscious? So um, but like I would like to like shed a light to this idea called Turing tests. So if for those that aren't very familiar with Turing tests, Turing test is about you know can humans tell the difference between a response from a computer and that of a human? And if you look at the trend, like recently, like computers have been pretty good at simulating humans. So like just 20 years ago, and this goes back to Moore's law, there was no such thing as Siri or Google Assistant or Alexa. And now we're in a position where like we can actually have a conversation with these devices. So if Moore's law holds to be true, um, I mean, we don't know what's gonna be in like 30 years from now. But at the same time, like, how are humans gonna be able to tell if a machine is conscious or not?
Yeah, it's just interesting that you bring up those like kind of everyday machines. I
Yeah.
mean, like I could talk to Alexa right now, and then oh, she didn't light up. I thought she was gonna light up and say something to me. But if I say like, "Are you serious?" Like the fact that someone can pick up, it's kind of like if someone were to be like, "Oh, Paul," or like it sounds like I'm hearing Paul, and then I'm like, "Oh yeah, you call me." Like it's just insane how a machine at this day, and this day 2020, can just pick up on that and just react the same way how a human can. And we just had a poll: can we create a machine like that? The prevailing thought was no, actually. So
I didn't get to vote.
oh, you didn't get to vote? Oh, I mean,
Me neither.
My
yeah,
vote counts.
yep, your vote definitely does count. I mean, so if these three have voted, I actually did not get to vote either. But if these three had voted, then we would have said it would have been tied. But does it even matter if they are conscious or not? What do you guys think about that question? Does it matter if the machine is conscious? Like I know Tolu, you were talking more so about machine learning and just the importance of that with regard to this conversation. So how about you delve into that a little bit and tell us a little bit about that?
So machine learning in general is kind of like a branch of AI. So machine learning deals with the ability for computers to be able to learn unsupervised. So right now, everything computers are doing, for the most part, are like there's a programmer behind the computers instructing the computer what to do, and so a lot of the computational visions or like speech recognitions, they are hard coded, so the computer is able to look for clues in order to understand or perceive the world. But like machine learning delves into a whole new field of computers actually being able to learn independently, unsupervised. And and in that case, if computers are able to learn unsupervised and then they have a conscience, then they have a sort of drive to learn things, question humanity, question humans. And I think that kind of raises a lot of questions and a lot of concerns for some people. And I mean, the thing is that, you know, and I think like I think you guys have been following the news on AI recently, like I think about sometimes in 2019, there were like expert computer scientists that weren't able to understand why uh, a computer program was making the decisions it was doing. So
Yep.
if the did the program had its did he have its own mind of its own, or was he conscious? Was he intentionally making its own decisions? So I think machine learning, if we're gonna get to consciousness, I think it's probably going to be through machine learning. But I think that's a very interesting question to ask. We really don't know at this point, but yeah, there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Something interesting that I actually looked into when I was doing my research on the topic was a thought experiment called the Chinese room. And I had never heard of it before. I'll explain it to you guys. Um, there's two scenarios. The first one is a computer is set up in a room and it receives Chinese characters, and then similar to a Turing test situation or your Alexa, it receives its inputs and then it spits out Chinese characters as outputs. To perceive whether or not that computer actually had an understanding and a grasp of the language of Chinese, someone would be given the entire code, like a computer scientist, say an American computer scientist would be given the entire code for that program in a book, sitting in a room with nothing other than that. His task would be to replicate the outputs of the computer with no grasp of Chinese.
Did it
But
work?
kind of establishes a line of like where it's a weak code experiment, but it establishes a line of like where the understanding starts. Like, is it beyond what's hard written into the program?
And then to ask the question, are we talking about uh, when a for AI? I assume we're talking about this discussion of when a computer device can start to alter its own processing, right? Not just have its own hard coding all set, but start to alter that on its own. Um, So I'm curious as to how you can. I guess you can follow the same logical steps there. Okay, I buy it. Good question.
So a lot of people are saying in the chat, well, define consciousness. Like, what exactly are we talking about? I mean, that's just a
Do we
loaded,
have Jose calling?
yeah, that's a major philosophical conversation that I think will take way too long for the time that we have. But then we kind of think about like computation versus consciousness. I think what Tolu said about what Tolu and what Surf said, just with how the machine can just learn and perceive something in itself, like would that define consciousness, or is that just computation? That's the thing, because I feel like a lot of people would like to just label that as computation in a sense. Like maybe the creator made it so that the machine would have that capability, even though it may not, the creator may not have intended that the machine would learn like whatever the topic is. Maybe it has the capacity to do so. So I think that's something that we want to try to distinguish for our viewer.
I feel like we're getting on the same topic as Jose's discussion on free will a couple weeks ago, on whether or not humans, if our actions are derived from, just a chemical reaction in the brain saying, I've seen this before and I know I should act to it accordingly, right? If you drop your spoon and your pasta goes flying everywhere, you're going to jump back so you don't get sauce on your white shirt. Maybe because it's happened before, and you don't want to dirty that shirt. But the same question comes about, we weren't originally coded, for lack of a better term, with that instruction in our head, right? But we learn through experience about it. In the same mind, are we then defining consciousness as this ability to think about ourselves and make that learning step, and take a step beyond the hard code?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Daniel. I feel like it's a very like consciousness is very tricky because like it is hard to, like consciousness is not a concrete quality that we can pinpoint to like how do we know we're conscious, for example? So like, if we can't really explain consciousness in human, like how are we going to explain consciousness in machines? Um, you know, Daniel was speaking of like humans, like we as an entity, we are sort of a computational device.
Mhm.
I want to call it a device, but we're a computational being because the decisions we make, our reactions are all based on experiences, which are all kind of stored in our memory. So we have a memory just as computers do. We have part in our brain that's responsible for like cognition and like for you know arithmetic operation and stuff like that, just like computers. So like in terms of like the physical being itself, you can design a computer to do everything a human can do, but like you can't really know if it's conscious because like there is no physical there is no like physical quality there. Like there is no concrete um measure that you can point to. So yeah, I think it's very confusing in that sense.
I think some of consciousness may come from being in like my physical human body as well. And I'm reading the chat, the C. Samoa and the lovely Wood brought up the ability to make irrational decision. Maybe how that plays into what humanity has and what a machine could achieve. Like, do you program in like some kind of errant problem solving in order just to spice it up? Or would you just have a perfectly rational, cold calculating being, and is that consciousness?
Yeah. No, yeah, that's really interesting. I think that kind of segues into a topic that we want to discuss, and it's just what are the consequences of this increase in artificial intelligence? and machines being able to learn and just the influx of technology. Because, I mean, I would want to say that we as human beings, we are afraid a lot of times of the errant qualities that we have. So
Mhm.
then, if a machine goes crazy, then what in the world do we do then? So, what are the we've talked about some of the like really cool phenomenon, but what can go wrong here? What are the consequences, both positive and negative?
I think personally, if a computer manages to be conscious, probably going to learn from humans. So probably going to learn about humans kind of morality scheme. Is probably going to get a lot of its idea of what's good and what's bad from humans. So in that sense, I think it's really tricky. Like, computers could be turned evil or could be good, could be a force of good, depending on what it's being exposed to or what's being trained by. Just think about it as a baby, for example. If you birth a baby and the baby grows up in an environment that's mostly positive, we generally expect the baby to tend to be more on the positive morality side, on the scale of morality or like evilness and goodness. So I think of the same way as computers. So if AI gains consciousness, I think a lot of morality of that AI will be defined by that of the humans that produced it. So, and in that case, you know, what are the dangers? I think you can see we might be able to just look at the AI as a reflection of itself. So if the AI begins to do evil things, that would be a reflection of humans being evil. So, and if the AI is mostly good, then that might be a reflection of humans being good. But if we're evil, then that could be a problem because the AI probably has the ability to amplify our evilness to a degree that we probably wouldn't be able to control.
Yeah, I think there's AI is the point um, where computers are no longer under the control of humans, essentially, right? There's a great quote that I wanted to share. So it's a prompt and an answer from one of Stephen Hawking's books. It says, "Why are we so worried about artificial intelligence? Surely humans are always able to pull the plug." People asked a human, "Is there a god?" And the human said, "There is now," and fused the plug. So that's what we're looking at, right? It's where the where the computer takes this other step, and all of a sudden maybe there's an issue, right? And there are certainly many dangers uh, produced, and people make the argument that there are going to be a lot of jobs lost because of automation. As far as you can take that as a benefit, maybe it's a drawback. And in contrast to the last technological um, revolution, a lot of those jobs will be white collar jobs now, not blue collar machine factory workers. Um, so I think it's garnering a lot more attention in that regard. Um, of course, it's got its benefits. One of the coolest machine learning ones that I learned of recently is there are apps that you can get on your phone to take a picture of maybe a spot on your skin that you're a little worried about and you want to go to a dermatologist. Um, and they have been scientifically shown to be more accurate at telling you whether or not it is cancer when compared with professional dermatologists with 30 years of experience.
What?
It's incredible.
Wow.
Um, but then you have the flip side, right? The dangers of it. Our buddy Elon Musk he has said that he believes the world will end at the hands of artificial intelligence. Stephen Hawking said that it's a conceivable ending to the story of humans. Um, so I think one of the bigger parts that I'm going to want to talk about later is how do you put regulation into effect, and who should be in charge of making regulations on the development of AI.
I liked what Tolu said
I think
earlier.
in order to like make regulations, you have to understand how AI works. And
How it
unfortunately,
works, right?
we don't have a lot of people in position of power or in government that really understands how AI works. I don't know if you guys watched like the Facebook testimony, like the big tech companies in Congress, and some of the questions they were asking were just plain ridiculous. And these aren't the people that we can have to regulate AI because they don't even know how Facebook works. They don't know what social media is. They don't know, you know, they don't know the basic things. So I think it's hard because, and at the same time, you don't want to leave it up to the big tech companies to regulate it. And I say that as someone that works for one because those guys have their own incentive. They want to be as profitable as as possible. So I don't know. It's a really hard one. We have to think about probably just setting up an organization. I don't know if we're there yet in terms of like the advancement of AI to
Mhm.
that, but like we need an organization that could sort of that independent of any state government or any business interest, that just people that are passionate about humanity, and we need those people to sort of like make those regulations because I don't think it's possible. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think it would be a smart idea to leave it to the big companies or to the governments.
Yeah. Sign this man onto it, huh?
Yeah, this
Oh no,
guy.
you work for one of the big
Yeah,
companies.
yeah. I mean, conflict of interest right there. So,
Conflict of interest.
yeah, yeah. Oh man, Surf. What was your take?
Yeah, I was going to talk about how Tolu spoke about what you introduce to the AI when it's first
Mhm.
perceiving the world around it. So I think definitely giving it positive images and then letting it figure out later on that maybe we're not all that we're cracked up to be. Definitely some of the horror scenarios that I've seen have been just like, here's an AI, let's plug it into the internet and see what happens. Leave it a wealth of information with which to make its own decision on whether or not we're worth keeping around, etc. So the nature versus nurture kind of strikes in artificial form there. As far as nature, I feel like we could program laws in. If any of you guys have read Asimov, were the three laws of robotics, which I believe were expanded upon by other authors. First being that the robot shall never injure or by inaction bring people to harm. The second, robots must follow the commands of humans unless it defies rule one. And the third being a robot must preserve itself unless it breaks rule one or two by doing so. I mean, you have to be very specific when you write these things because people have theorized about the ambiguities of those three rules alone, which seem pretty simple and fluid. But like then you have to get into the definition of, does the robot know it's a robot? Does the robot know what humans are? Does the robot have the capability to put us all on life support so we can never die forever? There's a lot to be thought about. I
Sir, if
definitely agree.
you see Timmy Gardner just threw Asimov in the chat.
Yeah, it was perfect timing.
He's just talking about that.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. They're really endless possibilities, it seems like. And I think that's what scares us because I feel like, well, there's some people that kind of just go with the flow and let's just see where things end up. But then there are a lot of people, I want to say, I mean, I could be wrong, but a decent amount of humans want to know what may happen. And the fact that there are infinite possibilities or that we can't define it, I believe that's something that just scares us. So, how do we how does this how are we interrelated in this? How do we say assign as the creators, do we assign certain roles for artificial intelligence and for these machines that learn? Like, is it kind of like how I know you guys have been going with the idea of raising a child? So is it that we kind of raise and nurture that child and hopefully create a positive environment for that child machine and say, okay, well, you can become this or you can serve this purpose in the world, like you have, there's a reason why you're here. And so how, what do we do, how do we assign that, or how do we play that to make it a positive?
Yeah, like Dan was saying, I think probably like a lot of regulations and care to make sure we don't pass a threshold where the AI becomes uncontrollable, like uncontainable. Yeah. But I mean, I do really imagine a future where like, we have controlled AIs just sort of like taking over like the hard labors of humans. So we have AIs as doctor. I know that's definitely possible. We already have AIs that are taking up like the basic task of like doctors of like scanning for like cancers, and Paul mentioned like an example. So we can have like a AI as a even a referee in an NBA game, for example. And one thing about AI is that they would always be more accurate than humans' judgments. And so if we are able to create an AI that's controlled and just does the hard labor of humans, I think that would be a future that I would want to experience, because now, I mean, people might argue that that might mean like a lot of people out of work, but that might mean a lot of people not needing to work, which is different. So if you don't need to work, you can just have people. I don't know, maybe the work hours might be cut down to like 15 hours instead of 40 hours. So you have people doing the same amount of job, but for a shorter period of time. And that leaves a lot of time for like leisurely activities. So that might be a life where people just wake up, watch movies, go to the beach, like, do whatever they do for fun, and and just leave it up to the AI to do the hard work of running the economy, of like treating people if they go to the hospital, or of regulating society, as long as they don't, know, I think this is definitely conceivable, as long as we try to make sure that those AIs don't sort of, you know, branch out into its own thing and just begin to work independently of what's been assigned to do. But that's a future I really hope for, and I think it's possible within my lifetime, and I'm really looking forward to it.
This man's gonna make it happen, huh? This guy's surf gonna be on the beach hitting them waves 24/7, huh?
I mean, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. Don't we all want that?
I mean, I'm not complaining about that, to be honest with you. I feel like the one thing is, I just kind of fear for humans and feel like we get a little gluttonous. I feel like we kind of already are. So, it could definitely be a little dangerous, but I mean, it sounds great. I mean, the thing is, it could also really increase efficiency, um, which I think would be a really nice pro. If we can say program certain things and certain things that kind of seem a little monotonous or just a little like uh they can just be done a lot easier if a machine were to do it. I think there's definitely needs to be like a balance. Like we definitely need to like weigh out everything. But I mean it's not a terrible reality in theory. At least not at this moment. I'd have to think about it a little bit more in depth, but sound of it sounds nice.
If some points on that, I agree that the upsides of successful creation of AI are incredible and not really fathomable for us at the moment, right? Um, like we don't know the bounds that could be reached. But you can certainly consider a solution to the climate crisis, uh, ending world hunger, things like that. Like you can derive immense benefits, but at the same time, we get back to the negatives. I found what Blas said interesting, or really what you're all discussing, as a means to remove this necessity of working, the hours that we currently work, right? Um, the biggest issue that I have with a UBI at Timmy Gardner is
Mm.
I have read some studies that show um, the lack of humans need to work in order to sustain themselves leads to a lot of psychological issues. Um, in that, for that reason, that I don't have a need to be, someone's just going to bring me food. I don't need to do anything during my day, and I can just sit around and do nothing. And there's a really high concentration of psychological diseases associated with people who are placed in that situation. So it's something that really we can't conceive that far ahead of time, but an interesting question that I think could come up.
I definitely think that there's
I
going to
think
be a
definitely, I think that's a good question to raise. Personally, I do really like to keep myself busy,
Yeah.
but you know, like back in the days, I don't think they had a gym. Like I don't know, if we go back like 200 years, they didn't have like gyms and stuff because there was no war. People weren't going to the battlefield. You didn't have to like wake up and stuff. So maybe we could sort of, you know, take on an identity as we have in terms of gym because now people, take gym people go to gym to stay fit because you don't have to work hard labor jobs anymore. Not everybody is
Yeah.
is placed in that position, And I can imagine maybe like a psychologist back then could be like, okay, when after the industrialization period, and people aren't active, could there lead to be like a psychological effect because people aren't going to be fit? But the person they probably think about the idea of a gym where people can go to sort of like exercise themselves and get their blood flowing. So that might be the same thing with in terms of work. Maybe we might
Sure.
not. Maybe when we don't have to work, maybe there might be a new facility or a new of services where we can go exercise our muscles, like our brain muscles, or we can go do something to get ourselves active and fit, like mentally. The absence of, work where you have to apply like a real mental effort. So maybe we can think of like a future gym, but for the brain. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Yeah, I mean, it was Socrates, I think, right? The ultimate goal or the ultimate profession is academia, is
yeah,
learning,
yeah.
right? Learning for the sake of learning. So maybe he was right.
But that's definitely like an interesting point because like humans have to stay active, and I think a lot of people stay active, and they are able to maintain their mental sharpness by work. I think my work definitely demands a lot of like mental like thinking and stuff. So I don't know, like if I don't have to do that, I do have I used to have some summers during college where I felt very lazy and I did feel myself like falling out. So I think when AI advances to the position where it's taking over a job, that would definitely be a real concern.
Yeah.
And for sure, if you just have an excess of leisure without the balance of something that's more focused and goal oriented, the leisure loses its touch. It's
Yeah.
just not as fun anymore. Then you reach out and look for something to do as a purpose.
You sure about that, bro? I feel like you
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 try.
you 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 would you would have just hit the beach all the time. Let's be honest.
No,
Yeah.
no. Get bored of
Fair enough. I mean, I think I'm just messing with you, of course. I mean, I think that's definitely true, and I think it kind of relates to what as Fishy was saying. I mean, the old adage, idle time is the devil's work. Um, it's really just how we view leisure, and I feel like just like kind of the utopian vibes that you kind of get from machines being able to do everything. I think that's really what concerns humans. Just a quick thing that I want to get into. Um, do you guys have watched Black Mirror before, right?
Oh yeah, I love that show.
Hated
Chat.
it.
Yeah,
hated.
you hated it.
Depressing. I couldn't watch more than like the first two episodes.
Interesting.
Real? Oh my god, you should watch more episodes. I love that show.
Whoa.
No,
That shit.
you gotta There's one episode in particular. If you do like decide to give it one other shot, unless you've already seen it, it's one where you guys know Get Out. You know the guy, the
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, Daniel Kaluuya. So he's in an episode, and in that episode, he basically everything is automated. Like the amount of intelligence that those machines have and the society they live in. I mean, literally they just sit on a bike, they pedal, and like the technology basically understands them to a T. The technology pretty much has a personality of its own. And it's like, okay, yeah, like you can just be here and do something, but like then do our lives have meaning at that point? Like we're so subscribed to the idea that you have to work, you have to go make something of yourself, and you really can't relax. Like relaxation is seen as something for like when you're old, like you retire, that's it. So the influx of these machines kind of taking away our autonomy and our ability to work in a sense that's why I think it's concerning, because if we can't do the thing that we feel like we're here to do, then it kind of just puts us in a pickle. But
I
mhm.
but
No, all you, because it was a segue.
I agree to an extent, and I just want to shout out what T Gardner is saying in the chat too, just on that subject. I think that we can contribute to society and our communities without being tied to daily incomes needed for like rent. There are so many things that we can do and so much work that isn't paid in money but is super important. So I don't think constant leisure is the answer, but more decoupling this thought that work is equal to money and money is or work is equal to contribution to society or something like that.
Hmm. So the last thing that we kind of want to touch on was, are humans God? Does the influx of AI, machine learning, are humans God? I think that's really at the core of a lot of people's concerns as well. Like, just in terms of what's taught in scripture, what's taught in a lot of religions. Basically, to a certain extent, it can be argued that AI defies all of that logic. So, just one really quick thing, because I think this is really cool actually. If you guys put in exclamation point person in the chat, just check that out, but make sure you do it like 2 or 3 times. Make sure you do that at least 2 or 3 times, and then let me know what you think really quick. But yeah, like, does this make humans have that sort of godly ability or what?
That's a good question. I think right now, what if we are AIs? What if there is somebody in a different world that's kind of controlling us or that's programmed us to be what we are, you know? And I think Elon Musk also spoke about this, that we're sort of like a Sims in our own universe, to say. So, you know, with that in mind, we do the same we do the same thing to those AIs. We could also play the role of a god, quote unquote. So, you know, people that put this being together, that's sort of like in charge of, how they react. But yeah, but I think I don't see what would stop humans from considering themselves gods if they can create know a being that's able to fully perceive the world and act on perception.
My bad. I'm busy clicking through this person does not exist. It's
Daniel,
crazy.
Daniel, you're on mute.
Damn. Am
Yeah,
I muted?
no, I don't believe so. I can hear you.
But I couldn't
Okay.
hear you actually.
Oh, you get. No, I was just saying. My bad. I'm busy clicking through this person does not exist. It's crazy, man.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was really mind blowing. Just the fact, and I see people are doing it in the chat, and yeah, it's just insane. When I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
these are just
Isn't
people.
that
Like, what's going
crazy?
on? And then, see, the craziest part is, I feel like I saw someone that looked like that like a couple days ago. The first time I got on the site, and I was like, wait, what? Like, am I supposed to be learning something here? But yeah, I mean, so what are your surfing and Dan? What are your guys' take on the idea of playing God or humans as God, quote unquote?
I think it's interesting to have like a role reversal where the createes become the creators. We have to ask ourselves definitely what type of creator we want to be.
Mm.
So that there's the active, like you're right next to me, I created you, you do what I say. And there are the other scenarios where there's some mystique involved. Maybe I just let the AI inhabit its own simulation, like a blank nothing, and see what it does. So the possibilities are out there. Certainly, if someone created us, they may use something that we believe to be religion as a
I'm
way to
having trouble hearing actually.
Hello?
Should I come a
Trouble
little?
hearing. I can't hear.
You can't hear. Hello?
I'm here.
Blas, I can only hear you right now.
Could you hear me?
What?
Yeah, I can hear
That's
you, Daniel.
sorry about that, guy.
Maybe we
Sorry
just
about that, everyone. Just having a couple
Yeah.
technical difficulties. Let me see.
Like HC Simone in the chat. Surf, wait until the AI you're raising goes through puberty.
Till it goes through puberty. That's funny.
This is
Wait.
the ultimate clown.
Okay, test. Can everyone hear each other?
Yeah, I got y'all.
Tolu, can you
So
hear
I can
everyone?
hear but Paul. Blas is
Surf.
the other Paul surfer. Yeah.
You guys all hear me too?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
okay,
odd.
that's weird. I can't hear him.
I told you I'll send you a text. I'll show you how to do it.
Right.
Get the dragon conversion.
Let's see.
Another narrow AI for pattern recognition.
Let's do this.
What's that?
And let's do this.
Then you could use a
Yeah, I can hear him now.
Perfect.
Perfect.
There we go. All right, we're back in action, everybody. So basically, he was talking about like
yeah.
you're talking about the createe becoming the creator, and I actually really like that metaphor right there. But yeah, who's a materialist? What is going on in chat right now? Yeah, Dan, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
I mean, I think there's a different perspective to be taken. We as creators here are creating what we're creating these beings, if it gets to that point, right? Not creating the environment in which they live. I guess we might be able to regulate that to an extent. But I think that the trajectory could become something where these are beings that aren't within our control in that regard, independent of whether we're living in the same environment as they are. So I wouldn't put the words on, are we a new, are we gods now? No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay. It's an interesting take. I mean, it's really just all up to interpretation. I think the idea of saying that we are God now, I think it's just a tough line to toe, just because I don't know. I mean, of course, like part of it is based in faith, and other parts of it are just, I mean, is it as serious as that in a sense? Like, is it raised where it's elevated to that level? I think it really kind of just depends on how this phenomenon continues. But let's see some things in chat. Oh, Seraph, I know there was something that you wanted to talk about briefly. Yeah, a little phenomenon that, you know, just a little, might have to give a little warning.
Just a little fun thing to think about with the AI as well. And if you have trouble sleeping and thinking about things that are scary or don't want to be involved in this, because once you hear it, you're kind of in it. You can mute my audio again, like was happening to Tolu before. So there's a thought experiment that I believe originated on an online forum called Roko's Basilisk. And the general premise of this is a sufficiently powerful AI was programmed to seek out and destroy anyone who conceived of the AI, not actively aid in its creation. Leaves you with a moral conundrum now that you've heard this. So you know that such an AI could exist. And if you don't help, now you're on the list.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So pretty much for all of you that are viewing right now and us as hosts, we're basically in the craziest game or version of the game right now. Yeah, I prefer not to lose, so maybe I'll start helping out that initiative there. Yeah, that is how all of them start. You were right, Una. That is so if you're not, yeah, so if you're not a part of the creation, the AI will kill you. That's the question. No, it's not that, right?
Yeah,
Or
if you know about it, you can conceive it, right?
oh,
Conceive of it, but if you're not helped to build it, then it'll either torture or kill you or whatever it's designed to do maliciously.
yeah. So, all right, we're all in it. You have to you have to show it to the people who get married. Well, we have someone who's not helping. T. Gardner, wish you well.
Best
Um,
way to beat it is by everyone cooperating and not building such a thing. But there's always that bad egg, you know.
let's see. Oh, I hear some laughs in the
Who is that?
background. Yeah. Is there a special guest that's showing up right now?
Do you want to call in?
I'll call in.
Okay.
Whoa. A call
He
in. Is
said
this
call in.
a live call in? Oh.
I'm here also on behalf of S Fishy because when she joined, she asked if we talked about like AI trusting or people trusting AI. And Dan did mention about how like they have developed AI that is like better at accurately diagnosing. You used it in like a dermatology sense.
Yeah, skin cancer.
Yeah. So I work in IT and I support like a radiology group. And it just blows my mind like every year that we know that there are like programs, there is AI that will like more accurately diagnose radiological images than the radiologists, and yet we still pay radiologists top dollar to like make more mistakes every year, and this costs people their lives. So like, why are people willing to put their lives in the hands of something that's like known to be less reliable just because they're scared of technology?
It's because they're humans, right? It's the same reason nobody wants an AI flying their plane.
Or driving your car.
Nah, or die.
There's already AI
Glasses.
like in every time your plane lands, they use AI to help it land like more efficiently to save gas. Like, there are just so many ways that AI is already there and people just don't necessarily know what it is. So until you like actually identify what AI is and what consciousness could be in however 100 years if we're still around, like I don't think that we're gonna leap this hurdle of trust and like actually reap the benefits of the technology that already exists. Like right now, I just feel like we're too scared of playing God or like the conscious. We don't even know that we'd be able to identify.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think one of the biggest hurdle, I think we definitely are approaching the technical capability to achieve some of these things that we imagine. But I think one of the hurdles that we actually having trouble, you know, getting over is humans trusting AI. Because I don't think people realize that AI has a big role to do in like flying your jets. Like a lot of pilots don't do most of the, if you speak to pilots, a lot of them sleep through the flight because the AI is in charge of it. But if you take a survey and you ask people, okay, would you trust an AI to drive your car? Like, would you get in a self-driving Tesla? A lot of
Yes.
people hesitant to to do that or to sign up for that. But I think it would be interesting to ask if they are aware of the fact that an AI is already responsible for flying their planes. Maybe that would make them more comfortable with the idea of a self-driving car. And I think part of what plays into this is like the ignorance of the public in general
Of
to
course.
think that AI is, out to get them or AI isn't as reliable as humans. And I think that's just totally inaccurate.
Yeah. I'll throw into there. Driving a car is a lot harder than flying a plane, especially if you're on the cross Bronx. But
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Oh God.
but I gotta say, Uno, when you said that Are we gonna let AI fly our planes? I think Blast is shook a little bit. I don't think
Yeah,
that's
I just haven't really thought about it, but I mean, just hearing what you guys are saying right now, yeah, that's 100% true.
Yeah,
And
like your level of comfort. Uh, oh, I totally lost what I was gonna say, so never mind.
yeah, I mean, we're talking about levels of comfort. I mean, when up there, it's not the most comfortable, but I'm more likely to go out some other way. So maybe the self-driving car isn't the worst thing. How many of those big airliners go down? I mean, I can't think of the last one.
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
like
air travel is the safest way to travel. Like they
mm-hmm.
have the lowest rates of incidents.
There's a lot of space up there.
AI in your airplane. Maybe that speaks to something. It's also just like a little bit more predictable with like less traffic up there.
That's
Or
true too.
even in self-driving cars, like all the lawsuits where there was a self-driving car like involved in a collision, in every single one of the cases, at least the last time I checked, which was over a year ago, but the last time that I checked, every single one of the cases was due to not like the individual at fault, the player at fault
A human
was
error.
the human, not the self-driving car. And yet, in every situation, it was the self-driving cars company that like faced the repercussions just because like if you put this case in front of a bunch of humans, they're like, oh, that's really scary. I don't want that going on the roads. Even though, again, like logically, it would be safer.
Right? Because computers are able to make decisions way faster than humans they're able to make decisions in split seconds, and I think you would never run into a case of a self-driving car driving drunk. For example, like you'll never run into like a self-driving car can get charged for DUI. And maybe like a self-driving car, and you're approaching a collision. I think computers are able to make better judgments than humans because they don't have the pressure of like fear or like a panic attack. Computers don't do that. They are able to think clearly in any situation, and they're able to make those decisions way faster than humans. So that's why I always wonder why people are so hesitant to like trust computers, especially when we already use it for in every other areas of our life. So I think it's just humans being very careful and like skeptical of this new technology.
It's new, right? It's humans don't like uncertainty, and the truth is we don't know what the future of AI looks like, and so you have to face it. You there's inherent uncertainty until it arrives. Um, so
That's
that's
actually
just how it's going to be.
that's interesting.
Trust the process.
Yeah,
Yes,
trust the
we'll figure it
process.
out.
Yeah, definitely trust the process. I mean, we're just control freaks at the end of the day. Like, and what Sophia put in the chat, we're also comfortable with kind of having like a cop out, being able to blame someone else, and being able to actually pin the blame on a human. Like, it's kind of like as extreme as it is, I feel like as human beings, we definitely do like being able to say, well, you messed up. Like, it's on you. Like, you gotta like hold the short. You gotta be the one to assume responsibility and whatnot. It's kind of like oh, my dog ate my homework or something like that. Like, oh, but you as the human, like, it's on you. So that is a really interesting like insight right there. What do you guys think about that? Real brief.
I completely agree. Actually, I think like back in March or something, like Paul and I were talking about this, that there is like this website that MIT has where like it gives you a bunch of scenarios where like the same number of casualties are guaranteed to happen. Like you're presented with, what is it, like the switching of the tracks, basically.
Mhm.
Idea is that like if you're in your self-driving car and your self-driving car has to pick like who's going to die in this inevitable collision, I always was saying that like that could be a good way to sort of mitigate the responsibility or like who's accountable when these situations do come up. Because if I'm given some sort of control over like how I want these situations to play out, then that does sort of spin it back onto me when there is an issue that arises. Like, well, I did sort of already pick that this is how I wanted it to happen if it ever came up. So it gives you like, A, control, and B, accountability.
So it's in the hands of whoever creates the, I think it was called Clever Machine or something.
I don't know.
We could look it up.
It was like from an MIT lab, I think. It was just like collecting data.
But it was basically an online poll where if the brakes in your self-driving car failed, you had to choose who's going to run over. Like sometimes it was crash and have the passenger of the car be the casualty, or like take the person who's crossing against the red light, crossing the wrong way in the street. So is it accountability? Is it the car's fault? Is it the person who created the car's fault? How do you decide who's going to get saved and who's not in an inevitable situation?
Yeah, I think we definitely need a new regulations and law for AI. Like when those become a reality, like eventually, like we spoke about regulations earlier. We would eventually need a body to create those to answer those kind of questions, and a lot of them are philosophical. But I think that's what you know inserting AI into society would have to call for.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think we learned a lot today. I think we had a real fruitful discussion. I mean, these four that you see on your screen, there's some savants when it comes to this topic. It seems I definitely learned a ton today. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think after this conversation, I'm a little bit more open to seeing where things go. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm definitely much more open to seeing where things go and how we can incorporate it into our lives. I mean, it's already it's already right in front of us. So why not let's just see how we harness it, and it puts the onus on us too. It's kind of like that nature nurture that we were talking about earlier. If we're bad, then what we put into the world will be bad. Those machines that we create will be bad, and then that's when it'll get really rough. So let's just see what we can do. Be open minded, and hey, I mean, it may give you a lot more time to do what you love. So that's us on AI. But so yeah, I mean, we just chopped it up, as per usual. But let's just give you a little taste of what's coming up next week. So the past couple of weeks, we've been delving into some more so heavy topics and just like thinking really hard and whatnot. But you know what? Next week we're gonna scale it back. I know it's 13 days from the election. We're gonna talk about self love, the importance of it, and self care. Just taking care of you, because if you can't take care of yourself, then who's gonna do it, huh? So we're gonna have a nice, chill episode next week. Be sure to tell as many people as you can. It's gonna be a really nice one, really nice and soothing. And make sure to bring that bottle of wine because it's Wine Wednesday, last Wednesday of the month. I mean, you'll see some nice familiar faces and some new ones as well. So definitely be there. It's gonna be a great one. But as per usual, we just chopped it up. I want to say huge thanks to our hosts right here. Without them, this would not be possible. Without you guys viewing, this would not be possible. But just throw some love in the chat for these guys, please.
Thanks for having us. It was fun.
Yeah, you guys had a great time, right?
Appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Yes, indeed. So we just chopped it up. That's all from us. We will see you guys next week. Enjoy your nights. Be good. Be safe. And remember to help out Roko's Basilisk.
Bye.